Hi, everyone. Hello to everyone here. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you're connecting from. So I'm Lois, and I'm the Deep Tech Pioneers Coordinator at Hello Tomorrow. And I'm really happy to be hosting this session about the Ask Me Anything session related to the Global Challenge. So of course, the idea is to just give you all the key information about the challenge, just about the timeline, the criteria, what value it can bring to you. So that will be the focus today. And I'm really honored and glad to be having today Lorenzo Conti as well, who is the founder and managing director of Crover. And he won in our food and agriculture track last year. So really happy to have you here. Hi, Lorenzo. Thanks for joining us today. How are you?
Hi everyone, really glad to be here. Since the Hello Tomorrow event last year was, one of the biggest highlights in starting, and looking forward to helping new applicants get through the process, and hopefully we can see some amazing winners this year too.
Yes, indeed. I'm really looking forward to seeing all the new applicants this year, and we're really glad to have you on this session. So just to give you an idea of today's agenda, I'll start with a presentation of the Global Challenge. Then you'll hear from Lorenzo about his experience, and then we'll dive deep into the selection criteria, so know exactly what you will be looking for. And then after that, we'll do a Q&A. So you can ask Lorenzo or myself any questions you have about the Global Challenge. But you don't have to wait until the end to interact with us. On the right-hand panel, you have a message tab where you can chat with each other and with us. We know you're connecting from all over the world, so you can say where you're connecting from, who you are, etc. And there's also a questions tab. So at any point throughout the presentation, you can ask any of your questions and vote for the ones that you think are relevant, because later in the Q&A, I'll go through the ones that have been upvoted first and then continue with the rest. So without further ado, let's go through the Global Challenge and what you need to know. So at Hello Tomorrow, well, we've actually been organizing the Global Challenge since 2014, and this is the 8th edition now of our competition. And the goal has always remained the same. So it's to support early stage deep tech startups that are pioneering solutions that address our world's toughest challenges. So who can apply? Well, with the challenge, we cover all different industries and technologies. So that means from aerospace to environment to healthcare, all of that is covered within our challenge. And on the slide on the right, you can see the different tracks that we have this year, which is all encompassing. And perhaps you might have also seen that there was an additional corporate track this year. This track is being led by Orano. So for this particular track, the startups they're looking for are the ones working in carbon capture and also valorization solutions. So that means that startups who are working in the space have an opportunity to compete in the Global Challenge as well as pitch in the finals of Orano. Now, who exactly are the startups that we're looking for? So first, we're looking for startups that have really, deep tech innovation. So whether that's a product or a service, it should be based on new technology, a scientific discovery, or a complex engineering process. The second thing we're looking for is that you should still be in the early stages. And for us, that means you can be a project that's not yet incorporated, or you can be a startup that has raised a maximum of Series A. So if you're just looking to find your new partners, your first clients, your first investors, then this is a really great fit for you. And another important eligibility criteria is impact. So we look for startups that have a solution that can positively impact our society, the environment, or an entire industry. Let's move on to the timeline. So as you know, the applications are currently open and the deadline is September 23rd. But it's always a good idea to start, a bit earlier so you're not rushing at the end and you can go back and revisit and make improvements. And once the applications close in September, what happens is we review them over summertime. And then in November, we contact all the selected deep tech pioneers. So you might be wondering, who are the deep tech pioneers? Well, these are essentially the startups that have been fulfilled the criteria and they've been considered by the jury as the best in their categories. So each year we select about 700 of them. And if you're selected as a deep tech pioneer, you get access to our exclusive events. So these events are like our Investor Day, where you can have one-to-one meetings with 150 plus VCs and CVCs. And also you'll get free tickets to our Global Summit, which is our annual event that gathers the deep tech ecosystem each year. You'll also have access to all your perks. So this can be visibility for your fundraising or just the big news about your startup. You also get access to online events and other resources that will help you grow, and opportunities to collaborate with other actors in our network. Then continuing on with the timeline, out of those deep tech pioneers, we essentially select the finalists of the Global Challenge. There will be about 60 of them, so about 6 for each of the tracks that I showed you earlier. And those finalists will be announced in early January of next year. Those finalists then go on to pitch as the finals of the challenge, which happens at the Global Summit in Paris in March 2023. And of course, the day before, we'll be hosting the Investor Day. And again, Deep Tech Pioneers get access to both the Investor Day and the Global Summit. So you might be considering, why apply to this Global Challenge? I already mentioned several perks, but just to remind you, these are the 3 vital opportunities we offer startups. First, we offer connections with a really relevant network. So you get in this network, we have investors, large companies, deep tech startups, and you'll have a chance to make valuable connections with them during our Global Summit, as well as all throughout the year. This could lead then to business and funding opportunities for your company. Or it can even help you find key team members, just like one of our previous participants who found his CEO at the summit. And if you're selected the winner, then you'd also receive personal coaching from our experts and personal introductions to investors and potential partners and clients for the future. Second thing is, of course, we offer startups global visibility. First of all, you'll get the Deep Tech Pioneer label, which is a signal that you've been recognized by us as a top startup in your field at an international scale. Then, during the Global Summit, the finalists who are selected get to pitch on a stage in front of 400 people. And at the same time, Deep Tech Pioneers who have a chance to showcase at the Global Summit in front of all the different attendees. And no competition, of course, is without its financial perks. So we do have 3 winning prizes. You can see them there: 100K for the grand prize, 30K for second prize, and 20K for the third prize. But even if you don't win, you'll still have funding opportunities through our Investor Day that I've already mentioned. And you'll also be able to advertise your fundraising at any point throughout the year to our international investor network. So that was a lot of information, but we'll dive deeper into the Q&A. And now I'd like to move on with Lorenzo. Lorenzo, thank you so much for joining us again. So last year you had the honor of winning the food and agriculture track. Happy to hear how it was. Did you expect it? Tell us about your experiences and maybe just a little bit about what Crover is doing as well.
Yes. So what we do at Crover is we've effectively developed the world's first granular drone, or what we call a Crover, in the sense of a device that can move through granular media. So anything from sand dunes, in case you're fans of the movie Dune, to mineral bulks, chemical powders, and grain bulks, which has really been our focus so far. So we've been focused on helping grain storage operators like grain merchants, cooperatives, and port operators maintain the quality of stocks like wheat and barley in units like silos and sheds by using our grain storage management system, at the core of which you have the Crover robot swimming through these bulks of grain, monitoring their condition, and also helping maintain their quality as it moves through them. The experience, I mean, we definitely didn't expect to win. We are usually, very, very confident in the sense, that we are aware that we've got something very, very unique and very novel. But going through these competitions, I think is usually very, very challenging, and hard to know in advance who's going to be the winner, because there's so many factors involved, and usually commercial traction plays a big role as well. So innovation, is not the only thing that judges usually look for. And we were competing against some pretty big names, I would say, at least a couple that had more traction than us. So we honestly didn't expect. We got pretty excited when we were announced as winners, so that was quite unexpected. I was sitting in the crowd. I thought for a moment of doing the Benigni thing when he, at the Oscars, where he jumped over different people, but eventually decided to just run down the aisle and I5 random people. Understand. I mean, it was, apart from that, I think having the stand at the event was an awesome thing. We were coming out of a period. I mean, it was still COVID times in a sense. It was just about when restrictions were starting to ease, and we had just been used for a year and a half or more to virtual events. Usually with small crowds, and as everyone probably has experience from virtual events, you don't get that much out of them as or as many interactions as when you go to physical events and have multiple individual discussions with attendees. So having the stand there, seeing coming and seeing in this big venue in Paris, very well organized, that many really high profile people. It was totally crowded. There was loads of these people that we are up until that point, especially big profile investors from the US that we've already heard of in the news, like TechCrunch and the likes, but didn't really think that we never even meet in person. These people, seeing them coming to the stands and having like deep discussions. Also the fact that there were corporates from different areas that were not necessarily grain storage, but that would see the potential of our technology in different types of dry bulks, even things that we hadn't thought of ourselves, and being able to establish those connections was pretty amazing. So I think that's in brief part of our experience, with the big cherry on top of winning the prize. But I would say even if we hadn't won the prize, there was massive value in being there.
Wow. Thanks so much, Lorenzo, for sharing your experience. Yeah, I think I remember seeing the shots. I mean, I was there as well, of course, but there was nice video shots of you running down the stairs and high-fiving people. Yeah, such a fun experience. And it's great because you also have the perspective of indeed someone who did the showcase of your technology. And it's good to hear that you met, some good people there that were relevant for you and your company. And indeed, as you mentioned, we try to make this event really interdisciplinary. So there's lots of different actors from different sectors, but that doesn't mean they don't have anything to say to each other. This space is exactly for that, so that we can find, cross partnerships. Yeah, I don't know if you have maybe any more specific, I guess you attended as well the Investor Day. Do you have any specific comments on that, or other parts of the summit that you experienced?
We didn't interact too much with the Investors Day because we had a little bit of delay with our plane. So we weren't able to interact much with the investor event. And also, I would say for the investor event, definitely try to organize meeting as much in advance as possible, because we only realized that we could match make like 2 days in advance of that event. And all the meetings, most of the meetings were already scheduled. So there was only kind of 2 or 3 investors, if I'm not mistaken, that we were able to meet with then. But then most of the investors we interacted with the following day. So, them coming at the stand, at the summit. And I would say that was really, the main highlight. I would say the stand was the best thing out of it, even having our prop in there, people being able to come around, see what it was, what we were talking about. Because otherwise for us, and it might be the same for a lot of other deep tech innovations, you talk about something that is very different from what people have seen. And unless you have something physical there that they can see, it's a totally different experience. So we had a stand with a box of grains, a little Crover robo, that we could kind of pilot around, a little bit of extra marketing props. And he just gave, we were also able to let people drive the Crover a little bit through as well. And it was, it was good fun in that sense. It was just a bit more interactive.
Very cool. Well, thanks. Yeah, thanks again for sharing your experience. Yeah, maybe you can already tell us a bit about where you are today. What's happening at Crover, and how have you progressed since your win back in December?
Yeah, lots of things happening. We've got a much bigger team than we had when we came to the Hello Tomorrow event, of about kind of 20 people or so. We've managed to establish some pretty nice partnerships with big names like Dyson Farming, the kind of the biggest cooperative group in Italy as well. And we've got, we were scaling up our pilots, and we've been improving the system so it's more robust. We're continuing to improve a lot of things like on the automation side. I think the main challenge for deep tech in general is that it takes a long time to to get something that is robust enough to go to a massive scale ready. And I think that's that's the main challenge that we're still working on, but we're getting closer. We've got a few units installed in the UK and in Italy, which are running, gathering data, and we're just continuously improving over that. And we're also preparing for a bigger fundraise, hopefully, to start in a few weeks to take us to the next stage.
Great. Yeah, great. Well, yeah, it's good to see definitely progress. It's only been like a few months since December last year, right? So it's already amazing to see all the progress you've had. Well, the startups that are here are probably still at the beginning stages, so they're still working on their applications, seeing if it's a good fit for them, what they need to do. Do you have any tips for you just the application part that before they apply or during the application?
Yeah, as you were saying earlier, definitely try to plan for things in advance. I would say probably the biggest bit of advice is understand, what the challenge is about and what the criteria are, and focus your application on trying to meet these criteria. I think that just applies to any application that you make, whether it's for Hello Tomorrow or for a grant or for funding. And also try to identify the best stage for your startup or venture to have the best shot at the competition or at the event. I think with these things is usually a tight balance between being too early or being too late. We've made those mistakes ourselves. I mean, even though most people think that we usually win everything, we've had a few failures ourselves, and I would say most of those have been because either we applied too early for something, or we were too late at a stage for an application that was meant to be for very early stage stuff. So really try to identify the point. I think in terms of Hello Tomorrow, that's probably one of the times when we got it just about right. Like we had known about the competition. Even the year before, we thought, okay, we're a little bit too early. We're probably not going to have a great shot, and also we can't at that point, because we were still dealing with some of the new, patent filings and so on. We were, we knew that we couldn't show too much, even if we got into the event. So we decided to, not apply then, and then, give it our best shot, last year, and fortunately that worked out. But as with everything, you have a little bit of an element of luck. I think you just always have to give it your best, and then don't hit yourself too hard if it doesn't work out. We were lucky that there was a great panel of judges that saw the value in what we were doing.
Great. Yeah, definitely. So good points there. Starting early, working on the application well, and yeah, timing is important as well. And I would echo that. So for Crover, you waited a year later to apply maybe, but for others, they also apply actually a couple times, multiple times even. And it's, it might be that second try, that third try where you finally make it past. So it's always a good idea to try anyway. So speaking of, making sure the criteria and how answering the questions correctly on the application form, let's maybe dive in deeper into this really practical guide. So I want to show you what we're looking at when we're looking at your application, so you can prepare something that's really suitable and help you hopefully succeed in the end. So the first thing I would mention, which is really important, is that your startup will be evaluated strictly on what you submit on the application. So it's important to make sure that it's as complete as possible. We don't do any additional forms or interviews to select the finalists. So you just need to include everything in that first application already. And of course, so we do have the selection criteria. We have the 4 criteria you see here, and each of them is what we use to review your application, and each of them are weighted equally. So first, as it is a deep tech competition, we do look at your technological innovation. So we're not just looking for a business innovation, but we're really looking for innovation in what technology is behind your company. So to demonstrate this, of course, you would need to provide a complete description of your technology on the application form, but that description is not enough. We would also need some kind of external proof of how novel and realistic it is. So some proof you could provide would be patents, like Lorenzo was mentioning, some publications, KPIs, and other things that can really show that someone has validated it externally. The second thing we look at is impact. So I already talked about this before, but it's really important to stress that we're looking to see your technology is aiming to have a positive impact on society or industry as a whole. And we're not necessarily looking for impact at a global level. That's not the only focus we have, but it should be at large scale. So nothing too niche. And third thing we look at is your startup's economic viability. So here we need to see that you're targeting a market that is sufficiently large, that you have a really, relevant and convincing business model, and that you also have some clear competitive advantages. So obviously this, for this part, it really depends on the maturity of your startup. So like Lorenzo was saying, they were still quite young, and I'll ask him more about that later. But even for really early stage startups who aren't yet commercializing or who don't yet have a prototype, we still want to see that you've thought through the business aspects, so that you know the market you'd like to target and how you'd like to address that market. And then finally, like everyone else, we do look at your team. So there needs to be a minimum, first of all, of 2 people in your team to be eligible. Then on the application, we do ask about the founder or founders and all the other key members of your team. And the goal for this is to demonstrate that your team and your current network, so it doesn't have to be just your team, but maybe advisory board or et cetera, have relevant expertise and relevant experience, and complementary expertise. So that expertise doesn't only mean scientific and technical, but also industry and business expertise. So those are just the 4 key things to really keep in mind when completing your application. And if you address all of those criteria, then I think you really have a quite good chance of being selected. So yeah, don't hesitate to have any questions about that for Lorenzo or just the global challenge in general, because we'll open it up now to the Q&A. Yeah, let me look quickly at our questions. But before we dive into their questions, I wanted to go back to what you mentioned before, Lorenzo. You said that you were surprised about winning because you were still quite early, and maybe younger compared to the other startups that were competing in your track. Yeah, can you give us more of an idea of what you mean by that? What stage were you in exactly? What did you have developed at that time?
Yeah, I mean, we still only had like a rough prototype of part of the system. It was getting to the point where we were getting close to starting the first pilots, establishing like kind of the first partnerships and so on. And so it was quite a crucial time for us as well when the December event came. But you also have to consider that you have the applications being made between June and September, and in our case we waited quite late, so it was more like September when we applied, and then the time when the event actually happens, that as a startup quite a few things happen in those 3 or 4 months.
Mm-hmm.
So also the company changed quite a bit from the time when we applied to when eventually we came to the event. Luckily we managed to make significant progress since the initial application, but as you said, for the first stages of the application until you get to the pitch at the event, if you get there, then up to that point you're evaluated on what you put in the written application.
Mm-hmm.
And as you explained before, there are several steps that you have to go through, which makes the whole thing more challenging, because you have to pass the selection from different types of judges. The threshold gets higher every time. First is being shortlisted as a deep tech pioneer, then being selected for the event and for pitching as a finalist, and then eventually you get the big pitch. And obviously the requirements for the different stages, they tend to be a bit different, because when you're pitching, it's all about what you can deliver in that pitch.
Mm-hmm.
I guess there's a bit of gimmicky there also when you're pitching. What we did is I took a prototype of the Crover robot on stage, and I feel that kind of helped, because during the Q&A with the judges, they asked to see it and touch it physically. So I gave it to them and they passed it around. Also, pitching is, I don't know if it's going to be the same this year. But last year it was quite cool because there was this stage with a big green road with actual flowers. I think, I don't know how you
Yeah.
mentioned it. And then you walk down. You just have the presenter that gives you the click, and then you've got these massive lights that make you see absolutely nothing. It's just a big light beaming on you, and there's an audience behind it, but you can't literally see anyone. And then once you finish the pitch, the lights go back a bit just so that you can see the judges, and like it's almost as though the light disappears on the judge when they're asking you a question. So your field of vision kind of changes through, and I think just mentally that's probably like one of the most destabilizing when you're trying to pitch. You may be prepared image in your room with a certain setting, and then you get thrown into this setting that you never tried before. So you got to be a bit prepared to improvise, and you've also got to be prepared well enough with your pitch that you're ready for anything going wrong or different from what you expected, and then just be able to continue through.
Yeah, definitely. Some really good points there. And so we have a question here. I think you might have already answered some of it in your earlier response, and maybe you don't have the exact answer to it. But so Pamansi wants to know what were the key factors that contributed to you being selected as a winner. So that's a bit hard for you to say, maybe, but maybe if you have a guess of what you think brought you to that winning stage, what would you say?
Yeah, I think, I mean, we probably know part of it because a couple of the judges, they came afterwards and then spoke to us because they were, very excited. I think especially one of them, I really loved because he was, from one of the big partners, one of the ones that you hear of from the US that I was saying, that you only see in the news, but you don't really know where to meet them in person. She came, she was really impressed, and even though they deal with what they call moonshots all the time, she was like, I've never seen anything close to this. So I think just that technological innovation, it seems like it was the deciding factor for us, and we were lucky enough that the judges were able to see the potential value. It seems like some of them were impressed also about the potential applications beyond grain storage as well. The fact that it was a wide-reaching type of the technology. The one thing that I probably love the most, I mean, there's obviously countless positives about Hello Tomorrow, but my very favorite thing compared to any other application, any other competition or event, is the fact that it's really about deep tech, and that it's really about real deep tech. And I think the media confuses a lot of people about what deep tech means, because Hello Tomorrow uses, I would say, at least personally, the proper definition for it, which is science-based innovation. You have a novel breakthrough in science, and you try to develop a new product or service based on that. A lot of the media usually uses the word deep tech to indicate software stuff, or even stuff that maybe doesn't really have any real innovation. Maybe someone wrote a new piece of code or algorithm that maybe doesn't have any underlying new science to it. I mean, obviously you can have deep tech with software too, but a lot of times it's used for stuff that is that isn't really science based. And there are obviously not that many events out there, even to a lot of events claim to be all about novel technology, like very innovative stuff. Everyone likes to use the word innovation, but I would say, like, Hello Tomorrow is the only big international event, at least that we've come across, that is really about deep tech and deep tech only. And so if you've got something that is based on a scientific breakthrough, no matter how crazy and how innovative it is, I think that's really the event for you. I mean, that's what Hello Tomorrow exists for. If you look at some of the other competitors and winners from last year. There were
Mm.
people in quantum computing or sort of stuff that we never heard of ourselves. And it was just, some of the stuff was it was mind-blowing. So I think that's really the fun of being there, that it's not necessarily all about your sector, but you also get to see all the very cool new stuff happening worldwide, and also the fact that it's global. I mean, there was people from all across the world, Japan, US, and so on. It's great to see where the world stands, and see also yourself and your venture on that kind of stage with that level of of startup. So I think that's also why it's hard to say when you go there who's going to win,
Yeah.
because there's so much cool stuff that in the end it's really down to the judge's preference.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, there's definitely, of course, again, that going back, there's this selection criteria that we still base it off of. But yeah, there's different parts to the selection process. So as I mentioned, for the deep tech pioneers and finalists, really it's focused on these selection criteria and exhibiting all of the different aspects that we're looking for within your application. So putting all the indicators that show your technology is innovative, has a competitive advantage over what's already existing, show how positive your impact is and how large of an impact it can have on whichever population or industry that you're looking at. And yeah, for the economic viability, just showing, again, it doesn't have to be very complete, but it should have been thought out and it should be convincing enough. So just knowing the key aspects of the market that you're targeting. And the team. So this is the first step to making sure you get to being selected as Deep Tech Pioneer and then selected as a finalist. And then at the event itself, so if you are selected as a finalist, then it is about the pitch. So that's very different from the application form you've filled out. Here, you really need to work on the public speaking skills, but also doing it within the time limit, making it so that it has, maybe an emotional impact on the audience, but also, explaining your technology, which can be a bit complex in a short way. So yeah, but with that, we do provide some pitch training to some of the startups. So it's not a big deal if you're not quite there yet. And then, yeah, so there's two different reasons why I think Crover was selected, is that they had a really cool application that showed what they were doing clearly and that they had great potential. And then on stage, conveying that with words and convincing the audience. Let me go back to the questions. So how many companies typically apply and how many are selected? So we do have a lot of applications each year. Last year we had about 4,000, but don't be afraid by that, because of course that means 4,000 applications in general. We don't know about the quality of these applications yet until we actually do the evaluations. And it's true that oftentimes once we do the evaluations, there are some that are not quite in our field. So as long as you fit the eligibility criteria, so having the right technology, being in the right stage of maturity, and having the impact aspect, then there should be a higher chance that you would be selected. And out of the 4,000 applications that we receive, we select about 700 startups each year for the Deep Tech Pioneer label. So we don't have a set amount. That's just a rough estimate. It's really about the technology that you're proposing. And if it's fitting our criteria, then we will select you. So there's no maximum to that amount. Let me go back. And then we have another question from Pal. So hi, my name is Pal Bogar from company Synchro. Practical solutions. Any charges to participate? Is it online or in person? Travel costs? So yeah, several questions in one. So any charges to participate, the application is completely free. And most everything that we do provide to startups is free. So if it's your first time applying, the access to the Global Summit, which is our annual event where we invite a bunch of investors, corporates, startups, etc., that is free for first-time applicants. And then for the Investor Day, there is a small fee, but this is really very discounted compared to what is being offered out there, especially since you're part of the Deep Tech Pioneers community. It's much lower than what you would pay for possibly other events. And again, this Investor Day is really dedicated. We only invite deep tech investors that know and understand your technology. And we do, a lot of communication about your startup beforehand so that they know exactly who's coming. And you get to book the meetings ahead of time. So just like Lorenzo mentioned, though, booking them is essential ahead of time so that you have the meetings on the day of. And then, so you also had questions. Oh yeah, is it online or in person? So yeah, for the Global Challenge application, obviously that's happening online, but the event, Global Summit and the Investor Day, that is all happening in person. We're happy to finally be back in person, and next year that will happen in Paris in March 8th through 10th, 2023. And travel costs. So yes, the travel costs are covered by the participants. So yeah, essentially, since we do invite quite a few startups from our community, we can't cover the travel costs and accommodation costs for all of these startups. But like I said, all the other services that we offer are really, almost all of them are at no cost to the startups. And this is where we can deliver the most value. So the only thing that you would need to cover is coming to Paris and your accommodation, and then yeah, we'll meet you at the event. Anything else in the questions? Okay, we have another. So if the current team is one person, founder full-time, but with around 6 to 8 people working in collaborative partnership with the company with a few advisors, it's still eligible. Yes, it can still be eligible. So we don't require to have 2 founders. We just require that there should be more than 1 full-time team member. So if those 6 to 8 people working with you are working, if some of them are at least working full-time, then this is okay for us. This is eligible. Great, great, great. All right, I don't see any questions for now. Okay, no, we have another. So Quran, yes, you replied. Yeah. Yeah, unfortunately, I mean, I don't have your application in front of me. I don't really know which startup it is, so I can't give any specific feedback on why you weren't selected in 2019 or 2021. But I'm happy, and again, you can of course win in other competitions. Our specific competition really focuses on, of course, deep tech and early stage. So if you don't meet any of the criteria that I mentioned earlier, that could be a reason why, but I wouldn't know more without, knowing a bit more about your startup, unfortunately. But, I mean, congratulations for sure of the other competitions. I know there's many other that exist out there, and it might be a better fit for your technology and what you're doing. But yes, great. All right. Any other questions? Well, I don't know. I might have some questions for Lorenzo. In the meantime, I'll ask them. If you have any other final questions, feel free to put them in the questions tab, and I will ask them to Lorenzo or respond to them. Do you have any other maybe final remarks, final advice for startups that are considering to apply or maybe hesitating to apply? Why should they apply this year?
I mean, if when you're a deep tech startup, I think it's usually hard in the initial stages to get enough exposure. So I think applying for a lot more is quite a no-brainer. We also got a lot of, you mentioned media exposure earlier. We got quite a lot of that, and I think that usually starts a bit of a chain of contacts with the media, that it becomes a little bit hard to really know where they came from. But so I couldn't say exactly whether it came only because of Hello Tomorrow or because of other stuff as well. But shortly after Hello Tomorrow, we got coverage in Bloomberg, as Associated Press did a piece. We ended up on the BBC, I think 3 times over a few months, and then different programs. Even like random stuff in other countries with languages that we can't really understand. But it was quite fun to have that kind of exposure, and also that helped connect us to some of the new partners that we have, because usually people see your name or you hear about it in the news, and then they reach out through the website, want to know more, and sometimes that leads to some pretty good partnerships. You mentioned, I mean, when you were talking about like cost and stuff, obviously, as you were saying, almost everything is free. There is that small cost that you were saying. I think for the stand in our case, because we paid a small price for the stand, if I'm not mistaken, the investor event was included in that. I might remember incorrectly, but anyway, it was the kind of charge that made it totally worth it. I mean, compared to what you usually pay for a stand at an event, where it was kind of, seem to remember it was pretty low. So I would say, if I'm not mistaken, there's a selection for that as well, which is separate from the competition selection. So if you get selected as a deep tech pioneer and you can apply for a stand, I would highly recommend it, even if you're not selected for the for pitching.
Yeah, exactly. So there's indeed an opportunity to showcase at the Global Summit. And since we do have a bit of limited space, it's kind of like a first come first serve thing, and also based on how interactive your technology is. And with Lorenzo with Crover, we did have a really cool demo to show, so they were selected. So it's not only the finalists that pitch that get selected and that have an opportunity to be visible, other deep tech pioneers as well. Via the stands, or even just attending the Global Summit. So there, again, there's a lot of opportunities for networking and interacting with people in the deep tech ecosystem. And of course, there's also the Investor Day just before. So maybe just, I don't see any more questions for now, but let me check. No, that's just the chat. Okay, just to recap a bit of what you can get if you apply and are selected into their Deep Tech Pioneers community. These are the two events I will show you. So we've talked about Investor Day already. These are some of the investors that have attended last year, and we'll also, of course, be inviting them again this year, and as well as our extended international investor network. And for our Global Summit, again, this is a gathering where we invite not only investors, but also industry leaders, your fellow founders, incubators, accelerators, media, and many more individuals. So if you get selected through our Global Challenge as a Deep Tech Pioneer, then you get to attend any of these two events. And I just wanted to mention again that yes, the application deadline is September 23rd, but like we mentioned, Lorenzo and I, just look at the application. Don't wait until the last minute, so you can go through the questions and maybe answer them early and then revisit them again before you submit. And also, if you don't want to miss any more updates about the challenge or just anything that we're doing at Hello Tomorrow, I'd encourage you to subscribe to the Core for Startups newsletter. So there we communicate to you about any relevant events, opportunities, articles, and resources that help you with your fundraising, any resources that help you to grow your startup, and connections, potential connections and collaborations with corporates in our network. So stay tuned then. And yes, thank you again, Lorenzo, for joining us today, and hope to see you again soon.
Best of luck to everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Have a good day.